the 137th press release in Shanghai regarding COVID-19 control. We have two items on the agenda today. First, we will update you about the latest situation of COVID. And the second is to share to the public the measures that we have taken for COVID-19 control. The distinguished guests with us, Ruan Qingxian, Deputy Head of Reform and Development Commission, and Wu Qingxian, Level 1 Council of Shanghai, Zhang Guohua, the Head of Health Commission of Shanghai, and Pang Wei, Deputy Mayor of Shanghai. May I first give the floor to Wu Qianyu for her to give you a latest update. On March the 18th, we have added 96 confirmed cases and 4,381 asymptomatic cases. Within the 96 cases of confirmed, 7 were identified in the closed-loop areas, and 6 were identified through mass testing of NAT. 21 of the confirmed cases were converted from asymptomatic cases. Within the 4,381 cases, 3,824 of them were identified in the closed loop, and more than 500 have been identified through mass testing. Among the 96 confirmed cases, we have 43 male and 53 females. We have 39 in Pudong New Area, 10 in Jing'an, 9 in Minhang, 8 in Minhang District, 6 in Xihui District, 4 in Hukou District, 4 in Songjiang District, 3 in Putuo District, 2 from Jiading District, 2 from Qingpu, 1 from Huangpu, and 1 from Jinshan District. These 96 confirmed cases have been well treated and diagnosed. They have been given a medical imagery, and the 96 have been confirmed as mild cases of COVID-19. Regarding the 4,381 asymptomatic cases, you can get to know their details from the public WeChat accounts of Shanghai press release. These 4,381 asymptomatic cases are also positive with COVID-19. They have gone through testing, imagery, scanning, and they have been confirmed as asymptomatic cases. As of 9 o'clock today, we have identified or recorded more than 35,000 people with close contact, and they have been placed under quarantine. More than 29,000 of those people have shown a negative result for nucleic acid testing, and we are currently testing the remaining part of this population. And all the 60,000 people with close contact, they have been placed under quarantine, and most of them have shown a negative NAT result. And we are currently testing the other part of the population. Right now, Shanghai is in a crucial state of COVID-19 control. We have to be meticulous and stay vigilant in fighting COVID-19, help the public to solve their problems, and cater to the medical needs in controlled areas. And this is very important. And we also need to coordinate the communities under lockdown and the hospitals designated for COVID-19 control. We have to make sure that those people with severe medical needs are taken care of and are properly treated according to the arrangement of the CPC Shanghai Committee and the Shanghai Municipal Government. Yesterday, we conducted a mass testing in Pudong and Minhang District. The effort has been conducted in a smooth manner. We have mobilized more than 17,000 medical personnel to take the samples of the general public. And in this process, we have received strong support from Jiangsu and Zhejiang provinces, and we are very grateful to their great support. As of yesterday, we have scanned more than 260,000 people, medical workers and frontline staff and our volunteers. They are working around the clock in the front line, and they have been working very hard, and we have to say a big thanks to their great efforts. In conducting the mass testing at the community level, we have to remind the working staff that we have to organize it in a very scientific way, and we also need to remind the public to wear a mask, avoid people gathering, maintain social distancing, and conduct the mass testing in a batch-by-batch manner. In the meantime, our medical workers, community workers, and grassroots staff must also do a good job in protecting their own health. All the people should stand in solidarity, get engaged, and get disciplined and work together to protect our home and protect our city. Thank you. Thank you very much, Wu Qianyu. And now let me turn it over to Ren Qian, the Deputy Head of Shanghai Municipal Health Commission. In order to follow through the important instructions of General Secretary Xi Jinping in COVID-19 control and follow through the requirements of the State Council, in order to win the battle against COVID-19 and coordinate our efforts in COVID-19 control and social and economic development, Shanghai Municipal Government has formulated a number of measures. Let me brief you the following. First, regarding policies. In order to help alleviate the enterprises out of their difficulties and reduce their operational costs and minimize the impact of COVID-19 on the society, Shanghai has formulated a number of policies following the principles of helping the small and medium-sized enterprises and also aligning our efforts with the national strategy of stabilizing economic growth. We have calibrated our policies so as to guarantee that they practiced on the ground. For example, for retail and the catering industry, the NAT is free of charge, and we have a subsidy of no less than 50%. To give you another example, in Shanghai, we are following the best practice for burden reduction for enterprises operating in Shanghai. In order to counteract the impact of COVID-19, we are taking into consideration the realities of Shanghai. We have formulated a slew of measures that's targeted and precise so that we can help those enterprises to empower their growth potential. And to give you another example, we are helping the real estate enterprises, and we are also helping the enterprises in the meeting and exhibition industry. And there is also a preferential discount for loans borrowed from the enterprises, and we have tax reductions and tax rebates, reduction of rents, financial subsidies, financial support, and to name just a few. According to our estimates, in tax alone, in 2022, we can expect to reduce a total of more than 140 billion yuan of tax for all the enterprises in Shanghai. Our policies include the following. Number one, to win the fight against COVID-19. For all those personnel and enterprises in COVID-19 control, they can be subsidized with their cost in disinfectants and COVID-19 control. And there are a number of sub-policies in this regard. Those qualified enterprises, they can be subsidized with their disinfection inputs, and for those working at the retail industry and other key sectors, and when they are conducting regular NAT, and they will be fully subsidized for their cost. And those working at the airport and cold food chain, and their NAT costs are fully exempted by the municipal government. And those who are working at the front line, those essential medical workers, and they will be given a subsidy for COVID-19 control. And this also goes to the volunteers working at the community level. We also support the innovative products and practices against COVID-19, and those who have been innovative in coming up with innovative drugs and cures in COVID-19, for those who have gone public in terms of alleviating the pain from COVID-19, there are also some benefits entitled to them in terms of tax rebates, reduced rents, etc. So in so doing, we can help reduce the burden of those enterprises. Specifically, their VAT can be rebated. And secondly, we will further reduce the tax and fees incurred on them. And this will also be expanded to small and micro enterprises and individual businesses. And the preferential policy period is also expanded. Those who have rented properties and office spaces from a state-owned property, and they will have a reduced rent burden. That policy will be valid for 6 months. We will also come up with better financial support for those enterprises. Enterprises in operational difficulties, they will have a easier support in terms of financing, loan interest, and also insurance policies. With all this, we can truly help those enterprises to relieve their pains and reduce their burdens. We will ramp up our financial and financing support for those enterprises. New loans in 2022, they will have a 0%, 5% reduction of the guarantee fee for retail and transportation industry and enterprises. New loans in 2022 will have a reduced interest, and there will also be an interest discount for those enterprises. In the meantime, we are going to ramp up loan and credit support for small and macro-sized enterprises. We are going to leverage insurance and other financial means to reduce the burdens of the enterprises, and if they swap the currencies between RMB and other currencies, if they handle business in the banks and come up with COVID-19 related insurance products, they will also be entitled to a preferential policy. In order to counteract the impact of COVID-19 on the society, we are going to introduce a number of policies to support employment. We have some measures to help the enterprises to reduce their cost in human resources. Mainly, there are 3 aspects. Number 1, we will reduce the burden on enterprises regarding Social Security costs. For work injury insurance payable by the enterprises, then they will be entitled to a discount of 20%. For enterprises engaged in employee training, they will be entitled to an online training subsidy. For enterprises borrowing a loan from banks for startup business, and they can pay back their loan on an extended period. We also support enterprises piloting new business forms. We support the enterprises to share their human resources and labor resources. Number 5, we support those industries in difficult operation to recover as soon as possible. And this mainly cover transportation, exhibition and meetings, and also retail. On a basis of the financial support, we have 5 specific policies. Number 1, for catering and daily necessity related industries, and they will be entitled to a tax rebates, and they will also enjoy some financial subsidies. And number 2, if you are from the retail industry, you will be entitled to some subsidies as long as you are on the list of our support, and you will also have your loans borrowed at a lower interest. Number 3, travel agencies who have earlier paid a guarantee fee will have the guarantee fee paid 10% less. A number of mitigation policies will also be introduced for the airline industry. Their VAT is exempted in 2022. And number 5, for meeting and exhibition enterprises, and they will also be relieved of their operational difficulties. And in 2022, should they host a number of exhibitions targeting international audience, they will have their VAT exempted. And we will also work with relevant industrial associations to come up with more preferential policies. In terms of running the city, we will ensure smooth orders of the society, and this covers 2 policy points. Number 1, to support the normal operation of enterprises, and each enterprise will have a targeted measure so that they can stabilize their supply chain and their industrial chain. We will leverage the coordinating efforts of enterprises in the Yangtze River Delta so as to ensure stability in transportation and also ensure the stability of major programs and projects. And second, we have to guarantee the supply of the city even during COVID-19 times. And this means transportation, telecommunications, and gas and oil, and electricity. And we will ensure our supply in daily necessities so that the price of those daily commodities will also be stabilized. According to our policy, different municipal departments are responsible in coming up with the details of the policy, and different districts can come up with more targeted measures, and they have to establish a dynamic framework of policy coordination, and they have to dynamically refresh and update their policy according to the needs of the enterprises operating in their districts. And starting from March 28th until the end of year, these policies will remain valid. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ranqing, for your introduction. And now we're going to kick off the Q&A session. Before asking a question, please identify yourself. Thank you. First question, please. Thank you very much. With Xinmin Evening News, my question is to Ranqing, to the Deputy Head of Health Commission. And the policy is that we should remain in our homes. How do you define stay indoors? Well, thank you very much for your question. Well, this is a very crucial part of our job. We have to do this very well in terms of mass testing. In this round of mass testing, we made it very explicit that if you are in the controlled area, you have to stay indoors. And that means that you have to be confined within your doors. You're not allowed to travel outdoors to the alleyway of your residential building or to the residential community. You're not encouraged to wander about in the residential community or walk your pet dogs in public spaces in a community. And this is so designed to reduce the risk of cross-infections. And if you need to claim your packages or dump your garbage, you can contact a volunteer deployed at your residential community. Actually, today, some districts have released the letter of notices for staying indoors. We appreciate if all the residents can carefully observe these rules. When we are conducting the mass testing, we have to do it in a batch-by-batch manner, conduct it in an orderly fashion, maintain social distancing, wear your masks, and protect yourself very well so that we can reduce the risk of getting infected. In the meantime, we can effectively improve the efficiency of the mass testing effort. And we sincerely hope that all the residents and citizens in Shanghai can carefully observe these rules, discipline yourself. And if we could all do that, we can have a promising prospect going forward. Next question, please. I'm with People's Daily. A couple of days ago, at the national level, there are some policies released for enterprises alleviating out of the current operational difficulties. And you just introduced the policies in Shanghai. And are there some specific policies aligning with the policies at the national level? Thank you very much. In mid-February this year, the NDRC released policies to alleviate the enterprises out of their difficulties in COVID-19 times. Supportive measures have also been formulated in Shanghai for the service industry. For the specific contents, I have already touched upon those earlier. So it's basically 1+N. And those policies are comprehensive, they are integrated, and they have the purpose of helping those enterprises currently in difficulty. We have dramatically expanded the policy framework at the national level. And bear in mind, this is 1+N, and by N, I'm referring to the different specific policies formulated at the Shanghai municipal level. We are going to coordinate our efforts with different government authorities and departments so that we can have a overlapping effect of those policies. And for example, in Shanghai, we have formulated a service industry alleviation policy guideline, and they will be made public in a number of days, and they contain a huge amount of specific points, and that will help enterprises in Shanghai. We follow a open principle. For example, we made it mandatory that our policies must be dynamic and reflect the ongoing changes of realities, and also help market entities to relieve their pain and improve the flexibility of Shanghai. Next question, please. And with the paper. So during the COVID-19 times, some small and micro-sized enterprises are in great difficulty. What policies do you have for those enterprises? Well, thank you very much for your question. There has been a number of policies introduced at the national level. Here in Shanghai, we have more policies to help those enterprises. For example, if they rent a office space from a public property, they can have their rent exempted in 2022. Our policy actually covers all the enterprises in all the different sectors. For example, if you are renting a property or office space from a state-owned asset in 2022, you can have your rent exempted for 3 months. In 2022, if you are operating in a medium risk area and have rented a office space from a state-owned asset, you can have that rent exemption policy extended by another 3 months. All the state-owned enterprises are applicable to this policy, and right now the municipal SASAC has coordinated these efforts with different authorities. It has already introduced a detailed explanation of this policy. So in practice, we're going to focus on the following 3 areas. Number 1, we're going to do a good job in publicity. On the public release platform, we're going to further explain this policy, and also at different platforms of the Shanghai Municipality, we're going to release the contact information, including telephone numbers. We will designate a special personnel to take charge of this very important responsibility. And we're going to work out a plan to release the scope of this policy, both online and offline. The relevant state-owned enterprises should step up their efforts in reducing or exempting rents for office spaces, at least to small and micro-sized enterprises, and they have to standardize the procedures in implementing this policy. Thank you. Next question, please. And with the Liberation Commercial News, you mentioned that there are subsidies for mass testing conducted by those frontline workers, retail and airport staff, and what are the specifics of those policies? Thank you very much for your question. If you work in a retail industry or in the transportation industry, you know that those industries are closely correlated to people's daily lives. They are very important in terms of ensuring the normal running of the city, but those are the industries that bear the brunt of the COVID-19. So that is why the government attaches great importance to alleviating those sectors out of their difficulties. For retail and catering industry, and also for the meeting and exhibition sector, we have basically our policies covering two aspects. Number 1, for those personnel working at key posts of those sectors, and they have to regularly conduct a nucleic acid test, and the cost is subsidized by the municipal government. If you are working on a special post that is closely related to COVID-19 control, I'm talking about the supermarket staff and also airport staff. If they are registered in Shanghai, if they are supporting the cold food chain in Shanghai, and their costs of nucleic acid testing can be exempted or subsidized, and this covers agriculture markets, food supermarkets, and cold chain enterprises. For wholesale markets that deals directly with imported food and cold chain food, their cost will be made free of charge. As for the specific subsidy standards and the procedures for the application of such exemption, and we're going to work out details and then release them on a later date. For the meeting and exhibition industry, everybody knows that Shanghai is the world capital in terms of meetings and conferences and exhibitions. But because of COVID-19, some meetings and exhibitions are suspended, leaving a heavy blow to this industry. For enterprises operating in this industry and for enterprises planning to host exhibitions in 2022, they will have their costs reimbursed. And with Wenhui News, and there are also policies in tax rebates. Can you give us more details? Thank you very much for your question. Part of the policies are about rebates and reduction of tax. And we believe that there are a number of very comprehensive policies. We have tax returns and tax delayed payment of tax and also tax rebates. So if you are a small taxpayer, your VAT can be exempted for a designated period of time. And there are also tax rebates and reduction policies. And the tax can be paid later in 6 months. And those policies, they cover a wide range of areas. And I believe that those policies will empower those enterprises even in difficult times. And tax return is put at the center of our policy framework. I'm referring to the value-added tax for qualified enterprises. They will have their tax return back to them once and for all. And this, I believe, is a direct support for the enterprises, and the policy is truly tremendous in terms of scale. According to our analysis, last year, 3,000 enterprises benefited from this policy, and we're going to scale up this policy dramatically this year. And we estimate that 250,000 enterprises this year will benefit from this policy. Small and macro-sized enterprises, they truly face tremendous difficulties at those special times of the COVID. So that's why in our policies, we have a lot of them that are designed for those enterprises. And they can have their VAT exempted for a designated period of time. And we expect that this policy will benefit more than 300,000 MMEs. If they have an annual revenue of between 1 and 3 million, they can have their VAT reduced by half. And we believe that this policy will benefit more than 35,000 enterprises. We also focus enormously on policy continuation for enterprises that benefited from our policy last year. For example, enterprises who took the initiative to reduce rents for their clients, and they can apply for a support from the municipal government. And those enterprises, should they encounter any difficulty in paying tax, they can let us know, and we will deliberate on their application and cater to their needs. So in general, our enterprises can benefit from a wide ranging of policies, and we believe that this year as many as more than 1 million enterprises can benefit from our policy one or another. Thank you. We are having a limited time, and one last question, please. Thank you very much. I'm with CMG. As was mentioned earlier, some enterprises are truly in a very difficult position. And what operational measures do we have for those enterprises operating in a very difficult situation, and what specific plans do we have to stabilize the market? Well, thank you very much for your question. Since the outbreak of this wave of COVID-19, the Financial Stabilization Bureau of Shanghai has worked with other departments to step up our financial support for relevant enterprises. For example, transportation and retail industries and enterprises, should they be severely affected, they can be entitled to some support. For example, they can have a larger credit. The loans that they borrow from banks can be paid back on a later date. In the meantime, multiple banks have taken the initiative to consolidate these efforts. They have adjusted the loan period. They also adjusted the expectations on repayment of loans. We also refined our online services by reducing the handling charges of bank wire transfer. Different insurance companies are leveraging their expertise in coming up with targeted insurance products. They have established a green channel for insurance claims. In terms of stabilizing the financial market, we have been stabilizing our financial services, and the financial services are not put in lockdown. They're not suspended. We do all this to stabilize the debt market, the bond market, and also the financial market. Securities, funds, banking, and insurance enterprises have initiated their emergency mechanism to stabilize the normal running of the financial market. For example, on March the 27th, Shanghai Stock Exchange has released a notice that for the period of COVID-19, there has been an adjustment of the timetable of their business. As of now, all the financial markets in Shanghai are running very well. All right, this is the end of the Q&A session. For more information, you can get access to our official website of the Shanghai Municipal Government, and we will keep the public updated about our latest policies. And this is the end of today's release. Thank you very much.